Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie. I have a brand new guest. I have Meghan Walsh on. She has been going through the worst nightmare any parent could go through. She has had her child removed on June 7th at 5 days old. And these people that are continuously bothering her are CHS, DCF, Eric Flowers, and Mike Diltz, as well as Judge Rob Meadows. And things aren't going well in Indian River County, Florida. And this is where Meghan is from. And she's speaking out. And she was an advocate before all of this happened to begin with. So I'm going to let Meghan talk, and I welcome you to Slam the Gavel, Meghan.
Thank you so much, Marianne. I can't thank you enough for reaching out to me and having me on today. I want to thank all the viewers for their time and really opening their minds and their ears to not just my situation, but this issue that is going on across our country and globally as well, as we're all finding out horrifically. So I really want to thank you for having me again. And unfortunately, I don't want to be delivering this information. None of us do, but this is the situation that we're in, and we can't stand for corruption. We cannot stand for what is happening to our families, to our children. Most of all, that is the heart of all of this, and rightfully so. I think it's time. We're all coming together. More people are feeling the courage to speak out. We have more independent news and people like yourself that are really providing platforms for people to speak out. We see people coming together with what I call better ways for these situations and neglect and abuse of our children that are real situations to be handled. So for me, this isn't a fight. This isn't a fight. We should all be on the same page. This should be one of the uniting, if anything, topics and issues that we all can unite on, no matter whether you're purple or an alien or an animal. I think everyone would agree that
Right.
Our children, and truly protecting our children and addressing when a system that we allow and that we fund is not working and actually injuring us. It's tearing apart our families. There's a huge focus on this best interest of the children, as we know, also this permanency term. And these are very divisive. Honestly, they don't work in the favor of families, family court, and CPS, Child Protective Services. It's different for wherever you are. In Florida, it is DCF, CHS, and things like that. But they are destroying our families, and they are falsifying records. The courts do not have a real take of what is going on with these families. Everyone's family is unique. Children are the most sacred, precious thing that we have. They're our future. For everyone that wants to care about climate change and global, issues, our children are the future, and they need to be healthy, and they need to feel safe, and they need to just have the fundamentals to keep things going in a positive way, right? Which is not happening through a system that currently claims that it's the authority and the experts in that. So we're facing those issues, and that's what I was discussing prior to my children ever being taken. I was with the Children's Rescue Coalition. I've been with affiliated with many different organizations. That's what my family does. For your viewers that aren't familiar with who I am, a little background is I am the daughter of John Walsh, who was the host of a show named America's Most Wanted. He then went on to have In Pursuit as his current show. And in between, he had different shows like The Hunt. So people know him from that, but also, and what the greatest honor for me is being the sister of Adam Walsh. My brother was the little boy with the baseball bat that everyone's seen, Code Adam. That really inspired my parents to start the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. He was kidnapped, or I say disappeared, from the Sears department store in Hollywood, Florida in 1981, which was not even a year before I was born. So that's been something that I was born into. Like I said, from there, my parents went into lobbying for legislation and speaking up about how to protect children. And then they did form the center, which then also formed the International Center for Missing Exploited Children. I grew up on Capitol Hill. For the people that follow me on my social media and things, they've seen pictures of me being held by Reagan and presented Rose Garden ceremonies as a baby, and around all of the politicians and all that was going on, as well as then, you know, as I grew, I was around media, Hollywood, you know, all of this. My father was on CNN, Fox, he's on Discovery now. So I was exposed to a lot, you know, growing up. And we do have two big things that I like to say we're all seeing these days is narrative versus truth. And also public personas versus private lives. And I think that not only does that pertain to celebrity and to my story and upbringing, but also to what's going on with our court system and our family courts and the people that are in authority to be in charge of these and are running these systems. So for me, I started advocating and speaking out, especially when Epstein came out and, you know, people were realizing what child trafficking and the different forms and contexts. You know, it's not necessarily the most gory, you know, scenario or what the media and the news is giving you. There are many forms of trafficking, just like there are many usages for one word. You know, vernacular is become a real issue these days for people. You know, and especially in this situation, this is a very hard topic and crisis to be telling people about. There's a lot of cognitive dissonance with the pandemic. People have already been put through trauma enough. They're sick and tired of being sick and tired. They're all dealing with their own issues at this point. And you know, if this has never touched your life, then you know, a lot of it you wouldn't be able to believe is going on. But also at this point, many people, unfortunately, if it hasn't happened to you yet, then you know someone or a family member has been affected by this system. The family court system and CPS really do take children from protective parents and give them to abusers. It is more profitable. That's more services. It's more potential things to go wrong. And the way that they are taking them now with these red flag laws and this mental health agenda and different things is getting very dangerous for children and for parents across our country. And unlike my father, it's not to fearmonger. It's to say, this is fundamentally wrong. This is a corrupt situation and system that we are dealing with here that we need to do something about. Parents and people speaking out should not have to fear for retaliation. They should not have to fear for their lives or their children's lives. You know, I don't know the safety of my children every day. And like we're finding out with many people's situations, you know, I can't check in. There were abuse reports by them throughout my case that were completely ignored. My due process has been completely violated. You know, civil rights, parental rights, you know, religious freedom, medical freedom, you know, it is all involved in my case and many others. That is my biggest thing here. I am only speaking out because I have been blessed to have a platform or a name. You know, I mean, I don't know, there's aspects of it that we're finding out aren't so great and that I have grown up with that aren't so great. But for this situation where we are now, speaking in the context, you know, I have a voice in this, and my parents so happen to be, you know, regarded as the saviors for children of our country in many ways. And they are seen as a government, you know, organization or government agency when it's not. You know, not saying that they say they're an agency, but they are a nonprofit that is given all the authority that a government agency would have, and it's all over our children. So, we can start talking about that, but also I know viewers are going to want to know not only about my background or who the heck am I, but also about my case and why my children were removed and things like that. I will say that I have done many interviews over the past year. I have been a year and a half now. I've been very fortunate to be supported by the people in the network of what I grew up in media, but now independent media. And that's really what keeps me strong and able to speak up, and also knowing what our children are going through every single second that we're even talking here. I say that all the time. I can't sleep at night knowing what's going on across our country and globe. And I will not stop speaking out and trying to address this and present better ways even after my children are returned. So I did have my children taken from me. It's a wild string of events, and like I had just begun saying, I've done a lot of interviews, so people are more than welcome. I ask people to please research, please watch my interviews, research anything that even you're like, what, that, come on, that doesn't make sense. Does it sound crazy, my story? Yes, it does, because it is crazy. And it's happening every day across our country. Parents are being accused of murdering babies that they didn't have. They're being accused of, that are babies that are living and sitting right in front of them. There's people being accused of horrible things that they're not guilty of. And that is what the issue is with this. But to go back to the logistics of my children being taken, I had been speaking up, asking my father, being an activist, being an advocate, getting involved, court watching, things like that. I started asking questions. Obviously, we were also in a pandemic, and people were Googling a lot more and talking to each other a lot more. And they were asking me questions. And so I thought, that would be something my parents would be proud of. And I asked them, what's the regular PR response even, from the National Center? What about Laura Silsby and Haiti and now Amber Alert? What about Epstein and Cindy McCain saying that everyone knew about it, but what were they going to do about it? Why are reports going missing that my own friends, mom friends, are calling into the National Center during the pandemic for their daughters being approached online or things like that by predators? And when they would call back weeks later, if it was from a platform that happened to be a big donor to the center, then all of a sudden their reports would be missing or wouldn't be able to be found. Why were we finding week-old babies listed as runaways on the database? Things like this I started asking and researching. At the same time, years ago, I went into healing and therapy and things like that to help others. I went into training and schooling for that. There's a lot that people can find on my background and my upbringing online. The Dark Outpost has done weekly segments. Nicholas Viniamin has been wonderful. I actually did an entire show with him just on the allegations of my case. So, I've talked about it for a year and a half. People can go on there. We need to start addressing the wider pictures and what we found over that time. So you can go find that. Also, the fathers of my children are on Right Side Radio with Jeff and Christy Tasker. So there's a lot of ways that you can find out any part of this that, you question, or you say, oh, she didn't go into it or anything like that. I just want to preface. But my family, I started also speaking up about abuse that I had endured through my childhood, and that was very covert. It was very Munchausen, narcissistic, a lot of those aspects involved in it. I had a wonderful therapist finally. My parents had been shopping me, in other words, taking me to different doctors since I was about 8 years old, instead of getting help for themselves. Understandably, you lost a child, you should get help. Instead, they were really thrust into the spotlight and handed contracts, and, it kept moving forward from there. So through that, I really had started even asking my parents to get help. I mean, they deserve healing. I'm not here to disrespect my parents in any way, but when it comes to children and corruption and truth and justice and God, I have to separate that, you know. And when abuse started happening that now is to an extreme level, you know, I can't honor that. You know, I can honor my parents and ask them to do what's right, which is what I've always done. But and I don't mean to, it's just a lot of information. It's happened over a long period of time now. So again, to get back to the kids in general, or the timeline, I should say, to get back to the timeline, you know, in March of 2021, a family court petition was filed by the father of my oldest daughter. And then from there, on April Fool's Day, I was pulled over with my children in the car by 3 or 4 unmarked police cars, and men in street clothes, 2 in sheriff's vests only, and told to get out of my car, come around the back. And for a woman with my 3 children, and I'm not a criminal, I'm not an abuser, I'm not a psychopath, I'm not mentally ill. So for a woman that's a mom, and where they did it out by our farm so that it wasn't in town and people didn't see, is very terrifying, especially when your father has endorsed the sheriff, campaigned for him, works with him, has a 40-year history with the previous sheriff that brought him up, Sheriff Lohr, who is now on the county commission. And, you know, you have these people against you, you know, I mean, people are like, oh, her dad, it doesn't matter who he is. Guys, it does. It's corruption. This is what we are dealing with across our country. It's not, don't make me the bad guy, and don't think that it's just John Walsh. You know, this is what's happening. And so, you know, when you do that, then obviously they're not going to question much, and you have them in your pocket. And we've seen that, sadly, very horrifically throughout this entire case. I mean, I'm not here to attack anyone at all. I want my children, this is my children's lives, and this is affecting people across, children and families across our country. So, so to go back to that, on April Fools, they served me with you know, with a family court summons. They could have just come to my house and knocked on the door. But instead they did all of that with this Michael Dilks. And I hate to have to point people out and call people out. I wish we were all just doing what is right. And that's not too late for that. But this Michael Dilks, who was already known all over TikTok nationally for being a racist cop and doing TikTok videos with his wife, that at the time wife, and all of this, he's involved in this, he's involved. Then I started going to my church. Well, I was going to my church on Sunday after they served me. I went to church with my children, and, you know, they have security there. It's in the mall. They have security for the children's program, and they have a cop that's there every month, a really nice, great guy that we love. The kids would say hi to and stuff. And all of a sudden, Michael Dilks is hired for security for that month, for the month. You know, the sheriff's department assigns the, you know, the detailer who's there for the month or not. So then he was sitting in the church, you know, while I'm at church, and, you know, trying to be with the Lord and in a safe space, you know, and things on a Sunday, you know. So for that following month, and that's a different thing that we could get into, is the church and different things like that involved in all of this CPS and adoption and family court, but that's for another time. So he was in the church. Then I get a day after they removed my children. So the April 15th, I get a call, I get a knock on the door. It's detectives, it's CPS. I haven't, you know, been asked anything. I haven't been, you know, investigated. They haven't looked at anything, nothing. I get a knock on the door. Being an advocate already, you know, people will argue whether that was a mistake I made or not, but the facts remain that I did not answer the door the first time. I've never been through this system before, and that's another kind of loophole. You know, if you weren't expecting this, at this point, your neighbor can get mad at you and call CPS on you. Your life has changed forever. And people need to realize that it is being used for retaliation in many different ways. by authorities and by, civilians, by exes, by, grandparents, things like that. And in Florida, there are no grandparents' rights. So I had a hearing for that family court issue on the 14th. Like I said, the 15th, I get a knock on the door from CPS because Judge Cynthia Cox, who has quite a history in Indian River County, did the hearing the day before. And before hearing any of the hearing at all, she looked down at the paperwork, wasn't sure what the case was, said, "Oh, just a minute, I need to get off," took a break, came back on, said, I had to call DCF to listen in on this hearing due to the allegations. It was an emergency hearing. By the end of the hearing, she rules that it's not an emergency and that we need to figure it out, try it first to figure it out between the parents and the adults, the attorneys. And I was representing myself at the time, that we need to figure out it was not an emergency. But she had already called DCF and they know that. They know how that goes after that. I didn't. I didn't. I was speaking out in other ways about it, but I'd never experienced it. So they come knocking on the door on the 15th, the next morning. I did not answer. I just bathed my children and was making them breakfast. And, I didn't want, I don't expose my children to stuff like that. I'm not a criminal. I don't want my children. I'm a protective parent. I grew up in a lot of crazy, a lot of terror, a lot of, nights alone crying because of being afraid someone was going to come in and kill us. It's not something that I ever wanted for my children. And so then I didn't answer. Next thing I know, I get, I'm thinking they'll leave a card. I'll call. We'll handle this, calmly and rationally. If I need to talk to them, if they need information from me, if we need to prove anything, these allegations are literally crazy. They are crazy. Yes, they are. And the fact that these people are involved in this system and can make up allegations and twist things the way that they do and everything is very concerning and quite frankly, mentally ill on their behalf. And then grab their chests and say they're helping kids. I mean, it's a whole different level, but when you're incentivized, it becomes, and you have immunity, it becomes very easy, I guess, to sleep at night. I couldn't personally. But anyways, I didn't answer the door. Next thing I know, 10 minutes later, I'm getting a call from DCF, Tiffany Perry, who we have mutual friends in common. I mean, this is a small town. We have mutual friends in common. I get a call from this woman, Tiffany Perry. Her husband just ran for, council in the next town over, same county. And she says, there 15 minutes, 20 minutes, you need to get on Zoom. There's an emergency TICO order. I mean, I had the day before on Zoom hearing for court was the first time I had ever been in any court proceeding, anything in my entire life. And so I get on Zoom and it's Judge Michael Lynn, who is a comrade with Cynthia Cox. And they have a great system going for themselves with the new mental health court, the juvenile dependency, juvenile criminal court, every court, it seems like. And so my father got on and said, Your Honor, she's holding those children hostage. We have to get them out. So Judge Lynn granted the TICO order, and I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what a TICO was. I said to my friend that was there at the time, I said, we need to go to my cousin. She's right around the corner. I don't feel safe. I'm terrified. They're taking, what's going on? Are they trying to take my children? I need her, So I was going to leave with the children with my friend and drive a couple blocks, literally 4 minutes maybe, to her home. As I was coming out, undercover police pull up. They've been waiting down the street. They pull up, block us in, keep us there. People can see the video footage. We have it all. And they took my children, short version here. I said, you're violating all of my rights. Everyone knows that this is because of who my father is and the affiliation with the sheriff's department and the fact that I was speaking out and asking questions about local corruption and speaking out about CPS in general and my father's organization. I also was then no contact with my parents for 6 months prior to that. People that know the story, sorry guys, I haven't had to recall this in about a month or so, and it's kind of icky to have to do in general. I'm better at speaking about our general issues within these systems than myself. I think people can understand. Thank you for that. And so then they took my children. We had a dependency trial that I had very ineffective counsel, and we weren't allowed to present witnesses. Anyone from out of state and different restrictions could not be witnesses. I did a complete full capacity evaluation after even my own children had been stripped from me under being accused of crazy allegations. I still went and did an evaluation on my own privately, not with their contracted, physicians or practitioners. Everything was fine on that. That was completely ignored in my trial. The witnesses, including my father, completely perjured themselves under oath on the stand, which I say that because we know in family court, apparently in CPS, perjury does not exist. And they did an entire trial. My attorney did not put in any evidentiary evidence. We entered photos of inside my home and everything because they had falsified the reports with Detective Thimmer and Detective Sunkel from the Sheriff's Department. There's so many details, and that's what people need to know also, is they're literally burying parents alive. They just keep, what do police say? If you follow a car long enough, you can find a violation. You can come up with something. There's that notion that, these have become witch hunts, and these people should not be allowed to do this. No parent is perfect. Everyone has a past. And if you're saying that your goal is reunification, but then you're never acknowledging any even change that does happen with a real situation, even if no one's also denying that real situations of neglect and abuse are not happening. They are, and we need to address that as well. There's also a criminal justice system for that, but you can't be using these red flag psychic abilities saying that, we're preventing. I think what they said, the quote was in mine was, we're doing this to prevent potential future adverse events that can affect them for the rest of their lives. Well, what is this? What is this event in their life that we know the brain damage that is caused from removal from primary caregivers or environment that is caused. We know the separation, the brain damage that is caused from the separation that is regular for children. We're taking children from parents and telling them to get better after we've ripped their children from them. And then this permanency with weeks, you only have this many weeks and months, and the checklist. If you don't, oops, your kids are gone. Oops, you lose what God gave you. And again, I'm going off on tangents here, but we're just kind of, having a loose interview today. But, so that happened. They took my children. I went through the trial. The judge mocked us and said, I highly doubt. I find Miss Walsh not credible. I find Mr. Walsh and all of his side of the state absolutely credible. And I don't believe that this was a conspiracy against Miss Walsh. And so we're going to continue on. So I fought for the truth the whole time. I was still doing the case plan. As we know, they do things to say you get one thing done, they move the goalpost. They do another thing, they move the goalpost, or they do something to say, oh, we found this, that falsify a drug test, do whatever. So like you mentioned, then I did have a baby, my beautiful baby Esther. They don't even give you time to register things. I had beautiful baby Esther. I know a lot of people say, why would she have a baby when her other three were taken? I'm 40 years old and I'm not guilty of abusing my children. And this system is already trying to get us to comply with enough. And that's not to say I went and did that out of spite, but you know what? I have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And having children for me is a priority for me, not the priority, obviously, but I want to have children. That's a desire, I should say, for me. And some people don't want any children, and they're not, to blame for that. So for me, moving on with my life and thinking that, we were going to get this taken care of. And I thought that this was so obvious, honestly. That was my naivete for a year. I thought that this was so obvious, not only in my case, but with it all coming out across our country. And so I thought that I would have my children back with me by now. There were a lot of weird things that happened during my pregnancy. They started asking if I was pregnant to my workers very early on. My father made many false reports saying I was pregnant, had the baby already. So they sent CPS through the neighborhood where I was staying, like the Gestapo, knocking on doors, asking the neighbors if they had seen a pregnant lady and a baby. I mean, this is not even humane anymore. People need to realize the system is not humane. Children are looked at as commodities, and they were literally hunting my unborn child. I'm sick of having to keep things light, because people can't handle hearing it, or that can't be true. So the day after they took my children, we got another knock on the door that was guns and guys from animal control. We didn't answer. We called for the report, and they said that they had gotten an anonymous call claiming that there were 3 cats and 2 dogs being held hostage in my garage now. So apparently I just hold everything hostage, in my own children, my own pets, I hold hostage in my home. Again, the 2 detectives, Sunkel and Thimmer, they, falsified documents. They backed this whole thing up. One of them even high-fived my father after he testified right in the courtroom in front of Judge Lynn, and nothing was said or done. My father was able to get up and down out of the courtroom and talk to witnesses before they went in, congratulate them and reassure them after they came out. Just a very ugly, I was sitting there, and my father went up to them and told them, "I can't wait to watch you work. Don't forget to be bulldogs. Go get them." I don't think a loving father that's so concerned talks like that about his own daughter, who's claiming we love her. We just don't know what else to do. You aren't fine with me for 10 years or 8 years of being a mother. And then suddenly when I go no contact and I start speaking up and questioning our past, then you have my children taken and I'm a criminal and mentally ill and an abuser. I find that highly unlikely. I was known in the community. My children were known in the community. So anyways, we had the animal control report happen. Nothing came of that. I still have my beautiful babies. At least I have them. I mean, it's horrible. I was able to save my animals, but not my own children. That's insane. I spoke out the day before my trial. I forgot to mention that. The day before my trial, I had a hearing. They said that it was in person suddenly in COVID when everyone was doing Zoom. I go and sit there for an hour and walk out. We find out it was on Zoom. Then all of a sudden it's on Zoom. So we walk out to the parking lot of the courthouse. I do the hearing with Judge Lynn. As soon as I hang up, I look over and there's a sheriff deputy standing there. What's your name? Are you Meghan Walsh? You're coming with us. There's a warrant for your arrest. I mean, it's hard for me to talk about because it was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. And I said to my attorney and my friend that was there, should we start filming? Like, hello guys, I don't know what's going on. What is this about, sir? All this, being very short with me. As soon as I said about recording, he grabbed me. The female officer was there. They were doing it all the most that they could do, and he grabbed me and put me in handcuffs and said, "We tried to be nice and all this. You're coming with us." Puts me in shackles in the courthouse. I've never been through any of this, but I do know the history of corruption with the sheriff's department. And I do know that there's cases, a very significant case of Brad Martinez, who it's, talked about and wondered if he was, killed within transport. There's video and I mean, I don't get into that stuff, but that is there. And we all know about that, And so then they put me in a transport vehicle, and, then I'm taken. And while I was being transported, they applied for an automatic jail transfer for me the next day. So meaning they did this so I would spend the night in jail, where I know the things that have happened during the pandemic with women dying, overdosing, and it not being reported. I mean, different things that other people know as well. And that, then they want me to spend the night there and show up in shackles and a jumpsuit. I mean, this is domestic terrorism. I'm sorry. And again, I am saying this, keeping in the forefront of my mind that this is happening to many other people. They're letting criminals out on CARES Act and all of this, and then locking up mothers that are speaking out or talking, parents, and tearing families apart, taking children. So I go and I'm there for 5 hours in booking, freezing cold, with criminals, hitting on me. And, I'm not used to that, I'm not used to that. And people can say what they want, but that's terror for me. And non-physical forms of torture and things we do know is freezing people out, doing things that, they know about. It's very psychological. That's not okay. And I've talked a lot about the prison system and issues with that, but that's for another time and another lifetime. I got my
definitely, because we'll have another podcast on that, because when I was in prison, I was in a holding room and it had to be 40 degrees in there.
See,
so I totally know exactly what you're saying.
It's maddening, and it's not okay. And God bless you for making it out. I ended up bailing myself out. My friends obviously arranged it while I was in there, but I bailed myself out. And rightfully so, they dropped the charges. Thank God. I always give credit where credit is due. I've supported law enforcement and child protection my entire life. I was born into it. Like, this is, I hate that I have to be here saying this, but I hate that nothing is being done about it, and that it's becoming this thing where it's torturesome and threatening and harassing people, stalking people. Where are we at as a humanity? Like, this is not okay, and there's just so many. I know I keep getting off of the main, just a timeline, but what's a timeline? These are such bigger issues that we're all now facing because of a system that's taking our money to take our children, to do this to us as well. It's not okay. And I know that there's a lot of disconnect. They've done it very well. If you were predators of children, we know about the parks and the schools, but if you're real serious predators of children, and we hear about Epstein, we hear about rings, we know that this stuff goes on. We know the 800,000, whatever, they want to say, whatever number it is at this point, of children that go missing a year. My father's own organization quotes, between 60 to 87% of children that are in child trafficking are from the foster care system itself. Well, where is their organization talking about that then? Why aren't they doing legislation to stop it and pass it, instead of promoting, like DeSantis and things, sooner permanency? Permanency means adoption at this point, and that's where the money for these people is, okay? People need to realize that. It's not okay. So, we go back to the timeline. I get arrested. We end up finding out that while I was sitting in the courthouse there, Eric Flowers, who's my age, my peer, we have, children similar ages. He was just outed for having an affair with a girl that I know, and cheating on his beautiful wife and their 8-year-old autistic son. That's affecting them, and also she's a mother of 3, and her husband, this was all over our local news, her husband was with the fire department, and her father was a police officer, I believe higher up as well, from what I remember. Our town is small, is old families, and it's a small town. And he based his oath and his campaign and everything verbally out of his mouth, saying, I'm a constitutional sheriff. And, if you cannot maintain and keep true to your marriage vows, then how can you be trusted as a public servant? That's the level of hypocrisy that we're dealing with in Indian River County, the 19th Circuit here. for Eric Flowers to be doing that. So we've got this guy doing this, cheating. He came out with a whole public apology. They started attending the church that I go to. I sat rows behind him and prayed for him, and his wife, and that he would do what's right in my case, and in my situation. I know it's very hard when he's all over the sheriff's social media now, and him and my father are doing weekly well done media skits, and he's getting his nose powdered in the old boys jail. And, he got really risen up, and I get it. I know that I've been there, I never took the bait that much, and that's why I'm in the position that I'm in. And I thank God for that, honestly. But that's why I also prayed for him and his family. So hopefully, he had a big future ahead of him. He did the work to get into the position. Some would argue not, but I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. And for him to have really signed up with John Walsh and this good old boys system and history that has corrupted our county for 40 years and is very talked about and very known, is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking, honestly. And again, like I've always said, it's not too late. It's not, you're in hot water. Why don't you, let's do something good. Let's do this. But between that and then my father saying, I'm the protector of children and all this kind of stuff, and my daughter's mental illness and, all of this, to be then exploiting and abusing his own grandchildren and myself. I am his child. I was born after my brother was murdered. This is devastating. And in many ways, the system has failed even John Walsh. It's enabled and used him for money and with his grandchildren and broken his entire family up, as well as his attorney, Gregory Hayden, who was with Nathan Yeager Law Firm in Palm Beach, Florida. That man, God bless his heart. He seems like a decent guy actually on the outside, but when these people get in court and the things that they do on paper and behind closed doors, as we're all seeing, is horrific. And again, if people were trying to hear the timeline and they're annoyed with me that she went all over the place, I apologize. But again, June 7th, my baby was taken at 5 days old, to return back to that. And they came in with battering. Again, here comes Dilks, Michael Dilks, first on the scene. The one officer did speak with me. They play good cop, bad cop. We know that, but I do give credit again and try to be hopeful. The one deputy that did speak with me through the window and whatnot, as patient as he could have been, he for what it is, I will give credit there. But we also then have the chief or whoever that guy was on the scene saying, I don't care if it's, when I said, you're violating my federal rights, he hung up on my ADA advocate. And when I said that on camera, he said, I don't care if they're universal rights. And that should be very concerning to all of the citizens of my county, and to, we need to realize this mentality that, officers and these CPS workers and people within this authority, what they're, working with when it's corrupt, and it's not, again, saying everyone's bad, but, so then they show up. Dilks, we got his body cam footage. We requested body cam footage. Of course, God is good, and they sent Dilks's body cam footage. Who would have thought? And everyone has now seen him getting the battering ram to take a 5-day-old baby from a mother in a home with a 59-year-old widow and mother of 4. He was running around the outside, instigating a lot, talking very badly about me, and saying all this stuff. And then when I confronted him about it on the video, I don't know who you are. I don't know. I know, of course, everyone knows who your dad. I mean, we have pictures of you guys together. We know how you all run together. I mean, this is, stop it. And why are you here? This is my family. These are children. What are you on? Like, what people even on the videos were like, this guy is on something. This man is very dangerous to your community. Like, this is not how officers are supposed to act. And again, now for me speaking out, oh, will they retaliate against? No, that's not okay. That's not okay. If these officers are in positions, they do not, this immunity and no oversight and all of it is very bad. And if you can't see that, you know, my father campaigning, these officers involved, you know, the connections within it, then we even find Adam Walsh forms and requirements for all interstate, out of state and international adoptions under Hague. You know, what does missing and exploited have to do with abuse and adoption? Is this a monopoly on a kid business? You know, what are we talking about here? Because the National Center is mostly known and mostly comprised of databases of all of our children. You know, Life Touch, your children's school pictures get uploaded. Half the people that happens to don't even know that that's occurring. They don't give consent. You know, it's very concerning. Again, that could be a whole other show. So I'm also just trying to touch on different things, and it's coming across a little scattered, but you know, these are bigger issues. This is a very deep topic, and my case is, you know, my father is trying to set case law in a very negative way through this, when we all as advocates and people and victims and survivors have an opportunity to make very great case law and strong case law through my case, actually. And I won't stop fighting for that. We have a mental health agenda coming up and all these different things that are trying to be pushed that people, whether you want to realize it or not, is really dangerous for parents, for citizens. I mean, if you look on a bigger level at this point. And I'm all about healing. I'm all about mental health, but it is not, you know, we know that there's perversions within that as well. And it's used within our CPS system. We know that with the, you know, finding services, what you can medicate, the big pharma contracts, the local pharmacy contracts. I mean, you know, Marianne, we could go on for days about the ways that the system is abused and the way that it's off of our children and us. You know, the worse it is, the more that they can do and the more that they profit. If we have any system, Marianne, that's over our children and families and things like that, if there's any incentive in it at all, then it should be for this family succeeded. Look, a year ago, they were without a home and they were suffering. And you know what? They were yelling at the children more because they were stressed. And I mean, that's something that we've all dealt with in a pandemic, if you're a parent or things like that. But no, that is now being used to take your children for potential future things, ignoring what they're doing themselves to these children, you know. And none of this did I see child psychologists, like, you know, where's the training within these people removing children and doing all that, and where overall they can say, oh, we have training, oh, we have this, we have experts, they go to psychologists. Those are all contracted out. Where is it presented, and where is it made evident to us that the perspective of the children being put through this is first and foremost? These are all done over adult issues, you know.
Definitely. And something has to be done with these false accusations. The constant calling in.
Hearsay.
You know.
I mean, they're taking children based on hearsay. Criminals have more protection than parents do in court and more of a chance to prove their innocence. There needs to be an option of jury trial for this. You can't have these kangaroo courts. You can't have one judge that has no experience, no actual knowledge or firsthand experience of any of these children or families, let alone them together and interacting and what the reality of these situations are. If you have a system over anything that has checks and balances and paychecks at the end, then you are treating everyone the same, meaning it's I mean, I would joke or laugh when people say they're treating us like cattle. I'd be like, okay, that's a little extreme, but yes, you know, that people need to understand, when you have a system that is checked and balanced, just like I said, for every single family, what family is the same? What issue is the same? What person's trauma or the effects thereafter is the same? You know, we need to be having community programs and things that are incentivized in terms of the success rates. We need to, if we're taking and terminating parental rights given by God, then we need to have the highest burden of proof, the most oversight, the most accountability. We're all finding out now, including my friend's own daughter, regarding, you know, girls being trafficked through CPS, children going missing and still being collected on. I mean, being molested, trafficked, sold, murdered. I mean, this is, we have that now. You cannot deny that. And, you know, the most disturbing thing to me, there's two aspects that are very disturbing to me. One is the system itself trying to now all play us. I mean, this is extreme gaslighting of narcissistic abuse. Okay. And if they all want to keep sitting there and not acknowledging it, that this is how the system's being used, because we're not even going, it's you. We're even giving you an out. Okay. We're saying that it's systemic. All right. Let's go after the system, not each other. And let's do it. And not even going after. We need to do what is right. That's it. We need to do what is right. If it's affecting negatively, then it is not right. If it has that as the success rate, then that is a failing business, which it is a business at this point. And people don't realize that after the state has made their decision, then what you do your case plan with is a private business. They have a DUNS number. Okay. And everyone needs to look into that if they feel that they are being wronged in their case and they have their children's lives at jeopardy and the future of their family. And I'm not here again to badmouth or, ooh, we're going to get them at all. You have a right to know your rights. You have a right that if a system is hiding things and, you know, sliding things when it's over your children, they're claiming to be these forthcoming individuals and pillars of our society. Well, we're also seeing how many of them are being arrested, how many of them are, you know, judges or police officers or CPS workers, whether it's, you know, abuse, SA, you know, trafficking, enabling people, falsifying things, the families that are collecting children for paydays. You know, we know all these issues if people, you know, are up to speed on that. And I know many of your viewers, you know, are aware of these things. So after taking my baby and everyone seeing the Dilks footage and then the chief going, I don't care if it's universal, then I go to kiss my baby goodbye. And also I was changing my baby and the officer starts like looking over my shoulder and people
I saw
like,
that. Yes.
why did you ask him that? And they like tried to act like shaming me. Well, no, why are you looking down at my baby? Like, I'm not going to do anything. He could see my actions, everything for the hour beforehand. And I didn't, you know, let's calm down. The night before that happened, also the sheriff's department, the neighborhood called the sheriff's department because there was a disturbance and lights in the community, and to find out that it was the sheriff's department. So the neighbors called the sheriff's department on the sheriff's department, who then said, because they were sitting out front of the house that I was staying in with the baby the night before she was taken, and they were sitting out front of the house, shining their high beams on the house in the backyard the entire night before taking my baby. And then they kept switching cars in out for shifts. And my dog was outside protecting us, and the dog was up all night long. I mean, terrorized my dog, terrorized us, with a 5-day-old baby in there, you know, for their drama and their trauma. You know, this department's known again for their big social media now. They've got John Walsh. I mean, good for them. They're citizens. This used to be a nice small town. And they're citizens, and you know, all of these things affect people, if not make people lose their lives at different, you know, to different degrees. It's not okay. And so, you know, they're sitting out there terrorizing to where the neighbors even call the cops about what's going on. And then, you know, they just continue by showing up the next day, bringing helicopters, every vehicle, emergency response vehicle they possibly could, because it's gone crazy in my town since my dad is basically like the puppet master behind this sheriff. And that's horrible. Like, he has gotten third party viewing on traffic cameras when they need to, you know, they promise they're not going to do it all the time or some crap. And he goes into the commission, which this department already gets over $52 million a year. and goes into the commission with my dad and flowers and says, oh, my son was decapitated and we need more funding for third party monitoring. And, I've been to Scotland Yard and said, well, my small town is not Scotland Yard, John Walsh. And you need to stop fear mongering the public so that you can get them to beg for more federalized policing, more oversight that then creates more data for you and your buddies, which is more money. And you're using children to do it. And the National Center and the International Center, I highly, ask and beg people to go look into. Nothing that I'm saying here is what I'm making up. These are all public knowledge. This is all documents you can find. This is all stuff. And so please go look into them. They are connected to everyone. And it's a very much a theme of what all those people are connected to and involved in. The National Center donors and their boards, look there, look at the money, follow the money, they say. Well, it's, the National Center, and there's a main theme behind all of it is Ernie Allen. There's a gentleman named Ernie Allen that is behind the National Center, the International Center, even Thorn with Ashton Kutcher. And he's this behind all the scenes. So if you look into those, I know we were talking more about CPS and the law enforcement corruption and things like that, but please start to look into the center. And you can follow me on Twitter. I know we're not there yet, but as it's, since it's presenting itself, please go follow me on Twitter. There's a lot you can, look up my name. You can look up my father. You can look up the National Center. You can do your own research online, like I said, because it is all right there. It's not hard. I mean, they had Jeff Koons involved in starting the center. Jeff Koons, look into him and who he's affiliated with and what he's been accused of. And, then we have Richard Branson starting the International Center with Hillary Clinton and all of them, and Ernie Allen, and being the sister to our foundation, which is NXIVM Sex Cult. And also many people aren't aware that he also was a founding donor to Terramar, which is Ghislaine Maxwell. Les Wexner gave Epstein his money and his backing, the control of his money, so that he could go focus on his philanthropy and charity work, which L Brands was his money maker. And many people are realizing about Victoria's Secret and things like that, as well as Nygaard is another gentleman out of the Bahamas, involved in all of that. And L Brands is a significant donor to the National Center for Missing Exploited Children. Ben Affleck, it's an interesting thing to go look into, but there's a lot of things called conspiracy theories these days, and people are getting, so your social media is being used against you, in terms of CPS and children. My case has not been about, they have not proven one bit of abuse. Even the claims that they made in my allegations are by statute. Not any of them are give you means to take a child or reasons that enable you to take any of my children from me, but they still have been. And the only thing that's been talked about in my entire trial, basically, and paid attention to, has been my social media and the federal case that I opened against all of them, which I have to reopen. But the point there is that, you have to be careful about all of that in terms, not be careful, we have to be aware of all of that, because it's not right. That should not be. We have freedom of speech. We have a First Amendment right. This is opinions. Right. And you can't, we have a right to criticize our abusers. We have a right to criticize our oppressors. We have a right to criticize and question those trying to take the most sacred thing that comes from our flesh and blood, that is our flesh and blood, from us. So I'm hoping that people can start to see the bigger picture. Even if you get mad at things I'm saying, then maybe you'll go look into it more, to see if I'm right. I was brought up in media. I'm going against, I understand what I'm talking about and who I'm talking about. And that's very hard for the American public, especially when it does get into my brother Adam and, the inception of these things and what we were told as the public, what I was told my entire life. I'm in this with everybody else. I just have, personal knowledge and, have been researching and looking and concerned about this for years, before this happened to me. So,
Mm.
in different ways. So, in a nutshell, I know that was many different things, a lot of information between my case and also the bigger issues that we do have going on. But, again, it's an overview, and people can look into things that are more specific online, and also we can, address them as they come. So
Most definitely. And I like to have you come back on when you have time. I know you're very busy.
yes, but thank you. We're getting ready. A lot of people have come forward finally from, independent journalism, and even some of more larger platforms as well. Again, I've been very lucky to be supported by that, very blessed, I should say. And so there is going to be a press release coming out. I'll make sure that you get a copy of it.
Okay.
The press release will be coming out. And so I will be doing more interviews and things like that. So we can talk about that, after this and moving forward. But again, I just, I want people to be able to find me, Twitter, and TikTok. You guys have to be patient with TikTok. I was not on all this stuff before, but I'm, learning and doing my due diligence, and I will get better because I do have a lot of research, a lot of documents. It's just, as you said, been very crazy. I just had court yesterday, and they're still keeping the baby. They're claiming I haven't done the case plan. The thing with this also, again, now I'm going to skip to this, but it came up with the baby and keeping the baby. People need to realize that, if you have children taken, then they put you on a list, you get subsequent children taken. I wasn't aware. I didn't think that, again, I thought my allegations would be proven false and my case would be closed. But that is something that happens within the system for those that aren't aware. They took my daughter at 5 days, like we just discussed. And the issue here is that they just TPR'd me on my daughter's birthday for my 3 other children. We asked for 90 more days to complete the case plan. I had done the case plan over and over again. They kept doing different things. And then I'm the bad guy in court to the judge. I'm this loser that hasn't done the case plan when I did. They even came up with the parental, saying that there was suddenly a conflict of interest in Broward County, like hours away, where I went to go do and to finally get a fair evaluation after being threatened contempt and all of this. And I finally get a fair evaluation. I go down there, I'm there for 7 hours or so. They bring the baby all the way down there, transporting, because that's money too. And then I have to wait weeks for the results to come back. And then right before, they say, oh, the provider told us that there's a conflict of interest suddenly. So now you're going to have to do another. Now this is the second provider. The first provider is with Shanless Psychiatric, Shanless Inc., or whatever they call themselves, with their swirls and silly logos. And they're contracted with Indian River County. Let's just put it that way. And they're very good at what they do, if we all get what I'm saying here.
Oh, yes.
Very good. They are expert witnesses. If you see that in anything, that's another thing to look for. In CPS, they have contracts with the legacy, with the health department, providers, the pharmacies, the everything. So you have to look at that and see. And right on mine, Dr. Williams, in Fort Pierce with Shanless. They have a couple of different locations. Dr. Williams, Theodore Williams, he had this parental. He said, I kept telling him that I did not feel comfortable with him doing the evaluations. I showed up the first day with a recorder to record him. So obviously that's saying that I don't feel comfortable with, it not having some record of it. And then the last day of I go in to finish the evaluation after going many times, all different sessions. He loves his whole process. It's all about him. And I go in for the last one right before my trial, and I would have had everything done, except for they arrested the 2 people that supported me at taking my baby. So then I couldn't live with a felon. They charged them with felonies and arrested my supporters so that I couldn't have a home study done, because I only had that and the last appointment of a parental evaluation to get my children back. And so I go in to see him. He starts lecturing me about, Miss Walsh, this has been over a year with you, and we've been working together. And I said, excuse me, Dr. Williams, with all due respect, we haven't been working together for a year. I've come in 4 times to do this parental evaluation with you. And from the beginning, I've been saying that I don't feel comfortable with you doing this evaluation. I don't feel comfortable working with you, but I'm still here. Let's be adults about this and get this done, because this affects my case and my children. And he, as soon as I said, I don't feel comfortable, what? And takes all of his stacks of tests that they make you fill out. What does that have to, they're going, you know, people, they want you to come out and be so open, and they're there for your mental health and everything. But if you even bring up, by the way, audience, if you bring up that you were abused, that will be also used against you. If you were abused,
yes.
then, you know, if you were abused as a child, then, oh, but now, you know, even against statistics, you know, most of it, yes, you can go both ways if you were abused growing up, but most of us vow from what we were put through to never do that to anybody, or never be that perpetrator. And we know that. But they will use that against you too. So he picked up all the papers and ran in his office, where he said he had a young man in there with him for a session, and he was too busy. And I said, Dr. Williams, this affects my case. And he said, oh, I know it does. And shut the door on me, walked out. I kept recording and said, you know, sir, can you please come out? We need to talk about this. We're adults here. No, oh, I know it affects it. We'll get another provider. We'll do that. Then the trial comes, shows up. They didn't get another provider, made no, you know, concessions or understanding for that. You know, when we have to understand everything that they do, they can't do something, they can't provide something, they're delayed, and so, oh, no problem, we have to say, you know. But if one little slip up, then it's, you know, you're a crackhead, or you're not following protocol, and they take you, here's another hearing, here's another charge for your attorney, and here's more money for us, you know. They tell parents that they're paranoid when they're the ones that are going, oh, these children, you know, we need police backup. We have the video or the audio from the police FOIA of Allison Armstrong, the first case manager, that did not disclose personal conflict that she had with me whatsoever, and did nothing for my children and I, and did not speak up that she knows that we are a good family from personal knowledge, you know, from acquaintances and good friends. And she spent the year harassing us and going along with whatever DCF said, the GAL as well. My GAL, I find out, is best friends. I mean, to the point of at the small intimate bridal shower, this Melissa Roy is the GAL, is best friends with the sheriff's mistress.
Oh.
The judge on my case, Robert Meadows, was with the sheriff's department for 16 years. And he had another relative that was married into, or somehow he had a marriage you know, also tie with the department. And he was known for being a hothead. He had to have severe disciplinary action and reprimands. He was taken out, put in a lower, you know, thing, basically saying as the last resort to not firing him because of his connections. You know, they didn't want to ruin his reputation. And then he became a criminal defense attorney, and then a judge in dependency court. And he was in a different district, or he was in Port St. Lucie in a different district, yes, or county, excuse me, one or the other, until halfway through my case. And then all of a sudden he was up in our county, and he was on my case. And he's it's scary, it's terrifying to go in there with him, honestly. They have frame me as this defiant, you know, sassy, you know, whatever, you know, kind of thing, that I think I know better. And it's disgusting. You know, these people should be proud that we're pointed. This is what these people are supposed to be about. Is it not about justice, about what the actual truth is, about protecting victims and children? You know, that sucks, you know. And then when I would bring supporters to the courthouse, that was used against me. They brought SWAT guys and everything to like escort us out for intimidation. This whole thing has been intimidation, you know, punishment, you know, all of this. And you're using my children, and you're trying to bury me alive. You know, my dad would love if I would break and commit suicide or go crazy so that he could grab his chest, get some case law, get the mental health campus that Cleveland Clinic has planned in our town that they're trying to get funding and money for that no one really knows about. Starting with a youth mental health facility in our small town. So it's a lot. It's all over the place. It's a mess. But, you know, again, if people go on and watch the other interviews, they are directed. Dark Outpost has my dad's background. I mean, there's just so much of it that you really have to, you know, it by nature, it's going to be a little all over the place. And that's how this system is. You know, it is chaos too when you're in it. You cannot make sense of things. As I said earlier, they bury you alive. And that's within paperwork, within accusations that then you need proof for, that then you have to do this. And then they move the goalpost here and over there and up there and diagonal, you know, and it's like, are we even still on Earth at this point? Because I don't think I have a spaceship to get my kids back, you know. And then I think at the end of the day, for it fundamentally for everyone here, at the end of the day, for it to come down to whether you have money to buy your children back or to fight these courts should be an absolutely disgusting, evil, and unbearable notion for people. You know, and for us to be at a point as a humanity overall, the masses should be talking about this. For us to not to be hearing these things, if I was a Joe Schmo on the street and I never experienced it, if I heard about it, I would damn well be going and looking into it, whether I believed it or not. And for people to not be not riding out in the streets, but speaking up about this and enraged about this in a graceful way for justice and peace and to actually protect children, then, you know, that's what's most concerning for me in this. That was the second point that I was going to bring up earlier, was that, you know, I have been in this, I've spoken out. I'm not mad at the corruption right now, Marianne. We know that. I'm not mad at the corruption. I'm very disappointed and upset with the people in this movement, especially the advocates that are claiming to be heads of organizations or taking that position and wanting that. And that place of ego and things that seem to be happening within a movement. And I'm going to speak that out because I want it to stop. I want it to stop for all of us in a good way, to be able to, that is what's defeating us right now. And people are, their hearts are breaking. Parents are committing suicide. Children are committing suicide in the system, you know, and you can hate me or not. You can be mad at me, another advocate, whatever you want to say. You can talk crap about me behind my back or have your opinions about how I present the message or the truth about my case, you know, any of that. But you know what? Those kinds of things shouldn't matter. It's really showing a lot of ego, and that's very dangerous because that's what we're trying to combat is ego in so many ways. So we need to, and this is about families and children. That should be the one thing where it's like, no, you know what? We're going to become the observer of this. We are not, this is not personal. I know that we're all in it and have had it happen to us, but we should also through healing be excited that we can hold our stories for a second and talk about these like universal aspects within it that can really help each of us and people in the future, you know, and we need to come together, heads of organizations or advocacies or people are saying I'm a CPS advocate, I'm a family court advocate, you know, we have to be coming together. They're even trying to separate us with this father's rights movement. I'll be the bad guy, you know, I will be the bad guy, and I support healthy parenting. I have never cut off any of my children's fathers if they are living a dangerous lifestyle or they're abusing or they're not going to show up for their child. Then you know what I've said? I don't want you involved in my children's lives. I don't want that for them. If you want to get better, if you want to work together, if you want to do that, and that's a good co-parenting and that's truly for the best interest of our children, I am always here. I am always a phone call away. Even my oldest daughter's father, you know, he has participated with my parents and done all of this, and he has not thought once about his daughter. He's grabbing his chest, believing and drinking the Kool-Aid because then that makes it okay. That makes what he's doing right. I mean, it's criminal what he's doing. And, not thinking at all about what this dog, he's claiming that he didn't even know that she was even his. I mean, also when I've sat and honored her father her entire life, saying, if you want to meet him one day, you can, you have 2 half sisters. His younger sister was my best friend, one of my best friends growing up. And she has a child of her own now. And she's going and meeting my child and doing all of this without even reaching out to me, Lauren Livornia. I mean, really. And she that was like, oh, I'm your best friend, but really is like your bully, and stuff. And we were always at their house because their parents weren't there. And their family is tied to the sheriff's department as well.
Oh, that's sickening. I am so sorry. This is terrible.
It's a lot, and I can't thank you enough for that. And it's like I repeatedly keep saying, it's a lot of information, but people are starting to see and realize, that things aren't exactly maybe what we've been told. And when I started questioning those things and seeing it for myself, the repercussions were things that I never would have ever imagined, to be honest. So
right. And when you said, everyone's connected, everyone, if they ever get involved in a case, they should start looking on LinkedIn, trying to connect the dots to who the judge is connected to. It's very fascinating. You can do it yourself.
It is, and you can. And that's a big thing, Marianne, that I tell everyone on my podcast and others that I go on to. Start looking in your local community. Yes, we were given Epstein and all these big things to go, oh, there's nothing we can do. That's too big for us. That's up to Supreme Court status and all this. No, it's happening. It's your judges, it's your teachers, it's your CPS workers, it's doctors, it is commissioners in your town, it is in the churches in your town, especially if they have a 501c3 or any program for children. You need to be very careful about that. If you have Masons in your town, they have the Shriners and, collecting data on our children. You need to be looking into your county and your local area, because if we all are doing that, then what happens? Don't towns touch each other and counties connect and everything? So that kind of creates a larger network, a larger knowledge, and we can come together finally that way if we're all doing our due diligence small. When we build a business, we start small. We want a good foundation. You look around you, and you'll, like you said, Marianne, I couldn't agree with you more. It's fascinating and terrifying at the same time.
Oh, yes. And no one will get this until it happens to them. That's the sad part. You can try to explain it to people and they just, they don't want to hear it.
No, they don't. It's too much. It's too horrible. They say, we know these people. No, you don't. I even thought I knew my father and my mother, and no, I didn't until I started really thinking about it. But that's a different thing. That's abuse and manipulation and brainwashing in Hollywood. But that's a whole different side. But it does all tie together because, this is government we're talking about. And, there are ways that, again, like I said, my father coming out with narratives and making people beg for, more control and more oversight that ultimately benefits them. And within this CPS system, my father has taken part in, aspects of it behind the scenes, as we see even. So it's devastating, but I'm hoping that people will realize. I was kind of taken aback in the beginning, thinking that this was very obvious. My dad supported it like an idol by every law enforcement, every 3-letter agency, everything. And with what I'm talking about, what I'm, questioning and everything like that. I mean, I didn't think that me doing it would result in this, but now that it has resulted in it, I thought that it would be very obvious, as to why he would be doing this, and using my children to try to silence me. This is adoption fraud. This, they're trying to break me so that they could get a conservatorship. There was a woman named Rebecca Inman in town that they were working with behind the scenes. I mean, the Britney Spears whole situation, I'm not there, so I don't know. There's a lot of funny business that always goes on, and people need to realize that. But you can literally replace those players in that game with players in my game, right now. And, my mother is the one mostly enjoying all of this from behind the scenes, sadly.
Mhm.
And the allegations in my court case seem to be exactly allegations that should have been hers when my brother was alive and when I was growing up. So it's very creepy. Anyways, we could talk
It
for
is
days, and
creepy.
I love talking to you, but
The ones on the witness stand that are perjuring themselves are actually, how should I say, telling their truth of themselves.
Mhm. Mhm.
And these judges are being paid off, or
Yes.
they've all worked in the DA's department or the sheriff's department, wherever.
Mhm.
It's just incestuous and
Sheriff has
sickening.
escorted, the sheriff has escorted my parents in and out of the back hallway of the courthouse. I mean, it has been just so in your face. My dad doesn't even care. He's just doing the most, I guess. As long as he
Oh,
gets those kids, he is in and my father, people don't understand that my father does have an obsession with children, and he
mhm,
gets the youth from them and the love and the energy and stuff. And it's very self-serving for him. And
mhm.
it's not good. And
No.
my mother is a severe narcissistic abuser. Everyone knows that I went no contact with her after they tried to film me and say I'm crazy and do all this in front of my children. And then she ended up being the one to go crazy and bloody my nose where I am here healing cancer. For your
Mm,
viewers, I have basal cell skin cancer. So I'm healing it with Rick Simpson oil. Many people need to know about Rick Simpson oil.
mhm,
I encourage you to look into it. But she bloodied my nose, yanked me by the back of my hair, and
mhm,
bit me on my arm on the way down. And I went no contact from then because then they tried to hold my daughter hostage, ironically, right? As you
mhm,
just said,
mhm.
in the house that night, saying that I could leave with my two boys my sons, you can leave with your two boys if you leave her here tonight. And I'm terrified. I was like, no, that's not happening. And obviously I didn't call the sheriff because we know why. He's working with my father. I would have jeopardized myself that night. I did take pictures. I do have the evidence. But then why I'm saying this is because then my daughter, for example, came later and said, Grandma bit me.
Oh, no.
Yes, it was
Yeah.
completely ignored. My 2-year-old, I was changing him in front of the worker. He says, Grandma hit me in my face, and Grandpa told her to stop. And then my 5-year-old was there and said, yeah, Grandma also kicked him in the neck and Grandpa told her to stop. And I made report, I let the GAL, Melissa Roy in Indian River County, I let my Allison Armstrong, my worker, now I believe she was still on the case at the time, either that or
Mhm,
it was Brooke Gaylord. Um, and and I called the sheriff's department for a wellness check. I asked my ADA advocate what to do, my other advocates. I mean, I did everything that I could, and not even a call back from the sheriff's department on the wellness check like they said they would. They said they went and my parents weren't there. Of course they weren't. And nannies are raising my children
mm,
um, while my parents get paid. A lot of grandparents are doing this across the country to supplement their retirement.
mhm, mhm. Yeah.
So anyways, it would go on and on forever. But I think
Yeah.
that we just all need to realize that, the masses need to realize we need to be, I get we're in this fight thing. I get that but no, we're here to educate and correct corruption and address
Mhm,
it and be coming together because there is no accountability happening here. So we are the citizens. We have gotten way too lazy and complacent with our problems being provided for and figured out and everything done for us by government,
mhm,
in the day and age that we live in. And it's time for us to really realize that it does take, if we want the power as parents, we have to take that power back. And it doesn't have to be some crazy thing. Let them be the ones that are doing that, because they are. They're retaliating against parents. They're doing stuff and taking children even more the second that you address it with them. And that should even blow it out of the water even more, shouldn't it?
It
Yeah.
should. Uh, Well, I don't want to keep you all afternoon.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for your time and for being concerned about that. I do have a broadcast tonight. I
Mhm.
have a weekly broadcast with the nonprofit that I'm a part of, um, which is Hearts Undivided. I do work with other, I'm around and within different groups and organizations, but Hearts Undivided, we are having a rally in Florida, November 16th. We'll be getting out more information about it. If people want to get involved, if you are in surrounding states, it's easy to drive down. If you're
Mhm.
in Florida, please reach out to us. We have all platforms on social media. It's Hearts Undivided. And we're looking for people to get involved as well as attend the rally. It will be an awesome day, very informative. We're here for awareness and for information to really have people, come forward and work together to stop this with our hearts, not our pockets, so
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
that's coming up. And again, Twitter and TikTok, it's Meghan Walsh _ and Megan is with an H, as you see here, MEGHANWALSH _ that's where you can find me there. Let's see, email. I'm getting a lot of if it's about a case or your case specifically, I recommend that you go to Hearts Undivided and reach out there. But if it's something pertaining to deeper corruption or the National Center or these bigger issues about that, please email me. Or also for, if you're a journalist or anything like that, please email me at contact at Meghan, MEGHAN, J as in Joe, Jane is my middle name, Meghan J Walsh, WALSH.com. That's also my website that will be launching hopefully on Friday. So I've been
Nice.
very busy running around. So we just had the storm down here and we've been
Mhm.
helping other advocates and stuff by the grace of God. Yeah, but it's bringing us more together down here.
Mhm.
So we're happy about that. But I'm hopefully launching on Friday. MeghanJWalsh.com. That's just my merchandise, my services, the things that I have coming out that are upcoming. I'll be releasing a first volume of some of my writings coming up because people want that and have been begging for the bigger picture and the deeper story. So, okay, guys, I'm here. It's happening. So I'll be
Right,
working,
right.
and I think that that'll be really good. I'm looking forward to it. I'm trying to keep it simple, but so people can contact me that way. Let's see, I'm bad at this. So I wrote down the different ones to contact me. We did the social media. My attorney, for this and for me to fight this, especially with the TPR on my children, I now have to appeal it. I
Mhm.
will take this as high as I possibly can. And as we all know here, it's not about even paying the attorney. My attorney is Hollis E. Mandel, and she's out of South Florida. And she has been amazing to just recently get on board, deal with all of the craziness of this case. The DCF attorney for the state is Melissa Klein and Pilar Harris, but Melissa Klein, it is absolute malicious prosecution at this point.
Mhm.
And after watching her in other hearings, she is very dangerous. I hate to say that. And this is not an
Mhm.
attack or a threat on her. This is fundamental. I don't know what she's been through or, what her life is like, but what she's doing in courts and against parents is absolutely, I could get choked up how dangerous what she's doing is.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
she's being encouraged by this Pilar Harris, and they're growing things, and they have new, initiatives, and it's very, very bad. And a lot of people are seeing that. So,
Mhm.
and also if she has an issue with anything that I have personally, my opinions about her or that, then that's something that you handle. You don't use the DCF court and my children
Mhm.
to hold me accountable or do whatever you feel. And
Mhm.
actually we would all love to talk to her, but she refuses to do that. and instead just attacks us in court, makes up things complete. I mean, the talent this woman has for making an aunt or a baby puppy seem like a demon child, you know, like it's just incredible. It's very scary and terrifying,
Oh,
actually.
and it's all at the taxpayer's dollar. If the
Yes.
taxpayer only knew.
Thank you. That's what I try to bring up, you know. It's one of the first things I said on here. I couldn't agree with you more. I hope that we all just keep pushing that message, because if you know, people seem to care about, well, you're struggling to stay in your home and pay your gas and your food for your family. They're taking your children and will come to take your family because of that, and getting paid with your money, like, which is the reason you can't do that, because you have to pay these tax. Like, we need to stop this. We need to wake up and stop shaming parents and shaming victims and survivors of this system. And especially when we do that and we get all caught up in it, we are complete, I won't swear, but we are complete and utter jerks. Maybe we don't even deserve to have children if we can't stand up for our children. I mean, I'm going to say, like, seriously, at this point. I'm a realist about things. And if we'd rather go, I know I'm going to be the one that saves this CPS issue. I know better than this, or no, we're going to do it this way. No, we all need to figure out how we come together as voices. So it's numbers, and then we can figure out and iron out the details later, you know, and because there's enough commonality here. There's enough of logic and, you know, heart and science and all of it, whatever perspective you come from that you need to find something to validate it. It's already there now at this point. So, and that's a blessing. So I hope that your viewers will hear this and get, you know, decipher through my goings ons and my case versus, you know, a wider picture and what we can do. But I hope that they start getting involved, and I hope they start asking questions. And myself and many across this country are here and want to answer questions, want to be given the funding and the opportunity to create places that mothers and children can be kept together, and you know, if it's a housing issue or if they're in threat of their children being taken, you know, where they can go and still be together while they work their services or get better for the children's sake, you know, and we should care about the mothers or the fathers, you know, it's like we have to justify for them for their children's sake. Well, yes, that's obvious, but we need to be caring about parents too. We need to be caring about keeping families together, and that's how, you know, children have safety. You know, there are issues that come from broken homes that we know. So breaking families, you know, why are we giving our money through taxes for the government and private corporate businesses to steal our children and give them and sell them to strangers, and then get our tax money for doing it, then get paid and get to buy their houses and pay for their gas and their new car and incentivized for doing it.
Right.
And never thinking, you know, I mean, the last I'll say on this is never once thinking children living, if there aren't, you know, in many of these situations, since there isn't abuse these days, 77, I believe, % it's at now was the latest statistic of unfounded removals by DCF and CPS. Okay, that's not successful. That's very detrimental. Okay. And no one is where is it mentioned or talked about that I'm a child, I'm living in my life, I have my parents, you know, everyone has stuff, but, you know, my parents were good to me and I I love my parents, they read to me, they took me, but whatever it is. And all of a sudden, these people, strangers, came into our home, came to my school, took me and told me that it was for my protection. And then furthermore, put me with abusers, put me with my dad that we weren't talking to, or put me in a foster home where the parents are just collecting money, put me in a foster prison where the kids are beating each other up or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, and how are they supposed to grow up thinking I was told that I was being protected? I mean, the distrust you create in a future generation, the disassociation, the trauma, you know, that you're creating. Oh my gosh, it's very bad. And then, as we know, the foster homes that are getting the contracts with the pharmacies and drugging children up during
Oh,
the,
yes.
I mean, I hope that this is an overview, and I hope that people can see how many different things we had to talk about in this time,
Hmm.
to even begin to address what's actually happening. So
I
thank
agree. Well, hey,
thanks.
I'm so glad to have you on, but don't jump off, okay?
I won't
Slam
jump
the
off.
ga-
The last thing I want to say is I couldn't do this at all. And that's what I was speaking on with the expenses and things. I could not do this at all without the support of the public. And that's, again, part of my big message in us coming together to protect our children, but also to be supporting each other. And I say
Mhm.
that because I have been so supported this year, and I am so thankful for it. And people that do feel that they support what I'm doing, not just my case, but on a bigger level, and like and support and want to support what I'm doing, not only reaching out, sharing, talking in your community about what's going on, sharing it on your social media, all of that. But also, we do have, of course, Give, Send, Go. I do have a donation and a platform up that other supporters have put up for me in the beginning. That is Give, Send, Go / Meghan Walsh. And people have been wonderful. I haven't been on and as active lately and stuff, but we do unfortunately have to pay for filings, for transcripts, for evaluations. Like I was saying
Mhm.
earlier, it's not just about the lawyer. My lawyer's been amazing so far, but we have to pay for the courts. The courts
Uh,
cost a lot of money.
the
And so,
fees.
yeah,
Hmm.
and I've been very vocal about that. So any money, if you want to call Hollis E. Mandel, her office, she has Zelle also. I'm sorry, I don't have her number, but I can give it to you, and maybe you can put in the description or
Oh,
something.
sure.
But she will take it directly if you feel more comfortable that you want your donation to go directly to the law firm, fund, excuse me, then you can contact her and reach out. She has Zelle, she'll take direct payments. She's been amazing, and she also is open to helping other families going through this. So if you are in the state of Florida and you need help with your case, please also reach out to her as well. I want to
Mhm.
provide help and support in any way that I possibly can. So please use her as a resource, or see if you need her for your case. Also, what was I going to say to that? I apologize.
That's okay.
I do have PayPal. My PayPal is and the Give, Send, Go. So the PayPal and the Give, Send, Go are for my housing, to get a house, and then for my medical care and things like that, as well as goes to the law fund as well. It definitely does.
Mhm.
But I want to be upfront with people that we are trying to get a house because mine was taken fraudulently. That's how they falsely arrested me.
Mhm.
So they said that I filed a false indigency report that my father went to the sheriff and provided, saying that it was not true and turning me in, I guess, when that was false. I am indigent. So
Oh.
I'm working day and night with nonprofits, and of course, we need to get funding for those. So I don't have a salary yet, but
Mhm.
also, if people know of any work from home, that's a big thing I want to address. Kind of the stuff that people want to know how they can support in different ways. If you know of any opportunities of work from home, again, my website, next week you can go on and see the different things that I do. And I love doing that, but I would love to have something from home. I need to have something from home so I can have baby back, and I can
Mhm.
be with her rightfully, and be working and doing what I was doing before they took my children. They're kind of a day
Mhm.
late and a dollar short. I already
Oh,
got the
yes.
therapist. I did the no contact. I
Mhm.
spoke up and, was keeping my children from them. I had done the therapy and healing, and I was actually, what she was working with me on at the time was to get on my own. That's a whole other thing that people don't realize when you're raised in families like mine, how
Mhm.
that dynamic is. But for me, I was really working very hard to get on my own in the event that they couldn't go get help for themselves and that the abuse didn't stop. So um, that's also a big thing that triggered them to be like, oh my gosh, she's getting away and we need the kids, so we can't live without the kids.
Oh.
Anyways, everyone, please reach out. The PayPal is Family
Mhm.
Farm Faith. So that's my other email for the farm that I was developing when they took my children for the community was Family, Farm, and Faith, spelled out AND, and Faith, FAITH, in case it's not coming over
Mhm.
through the audio. So I think that's the rundown. Sorry, it's been a minute since I did interviews and running around. So again, I apologize that it wasn't a full presentation, but thank
Oh,
you again
no,
so
you
much, Mary.
did very well. No, I appreciate it. Well, hey, don't jump off. Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these family courtrooms. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth. Please join us again here with Meghan Walsh in the future and other exciting guests. Thank you again, Meghan.
Thank you. God bless.
God
Thank you.
bless you too.